I've often wondered why it is we have children in the first place. And the conclusion I've come to is at some point in our lives, we realize they're screwed up beyond repair. So we decide to start again. Wipe the slate clean. Start afresh. And we have children. Little carbon copies we can turn to and say, you will do what I could not. You will succeed where I have failed. Because we want someone to get it right this time. But not me. Personally speaking, I can't wait to watch life tear you apart.
You're listening to The Night Before, a movie podcast. Each episode, we find a unique place in the city and share a drink and our thoughts about the movie we watched the night before. This is Lee, and I am joined, as always, by my husband, Jesse.
So we watched a movie last night.
We did watch a movie, and we are out the next day.
And we are out the next day, yeah. So we are visiting a new place that we've never been before.
Driven by many times.
We're
in Ybor City, Florida, outside of part of Tampa.
It's a historic part of Tampa.
And we're at Bastet Brewing.
Bastet.
That's what I said, right?
Bastet.
Bastet. B-A-S.
T-E-T.
E-N-T. No N. E-T.
T-E-T. Yeah.
Bastet. Bastet. I keep forgetting that S in there. Bastet.
Yes. Good.
Bastet Brewing.
Right. Which apparently is an Egyptian goddess.
It's an Egyptian goddess, pharaoh.
So there is Egyptian decor. Not in a bad way.
It's
really
just the theme of the place. But what's cool about this brewery is they also specialize in more international beer brews. They brew it in-house. But I'm drinking more of a ginger beer is the closest thing you could say, but it's not a ginger beer
it's
from
a fruit
Jamaica.
Beer, but it tastes very spicy, gingery.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking a sour, but it's kind of different. It has elderflower tones. Did I say I'm drinking a flower or sour? Sour.
Use that sour.
Okay.
But I think it's called something about
flower.
All the flowers or
something. It's delicious. So they have a lot of different choices of beers, not kind of your typical
they don't do just stouts,
IPA, sour, and wheat.
They
do
lagers.
Lots of different styles and maybe even flavors that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, just sort of a little more worldly approach to their beers. There's one I want to do next. It's kind of a Mexican-inspired brew.
Mm-hmm. It's called Olay. If my eyes were better, I could actually see.
But it has pineapple, ginger,
lime,
cardamom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try that next. Probably during this recording, I'm going to just get up and go get it.
It's not a big place, but there's plenty of tables and seating, but it's a smaller brewery.
Yeah, it's kind of in a little strip type area. Not like a standalone business.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth coming to.
But cool.
Sure.
But we came here also because, as we've rated in our one of our previous podcasts, the number one pizza in Tampa, Essential Pizza, was also
they were
parked
here,
out front.
So we were like, let's just do it. I mean, two things. We've been wanting to come to this brewery, and our favorite pizza truck is there, so why not?
Yeah. So I'm drinking this ginger beer. Tastes a little bit like a kombucha, but it's really good.
Yeah. So it's good.
And they did have like a hazy IPA. We started off with that, and it was good. So if
It
you want
was
something a
really
little more
good.
traditional, they got one or two little
They got
offerings
that
for
too.
you.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a cool, chill spot. It's definitely something which I can appreciate. It's not going to get your typical brewery bro crowd. Kind of just.
Which we try to stay away from.
Yeah. Some breweries are just sort of like, whatevs.
Sometimes it's just too much.
This feels like a little more like hidden gem,
Hidden
locals
gem,
only vibe.
right outside Ybor
Tampa,
City,
yeah.
right on the cusp of Ybor City, if you will.
Which, fun fact, one of our previous podcasts, you might even know this, when Zola, we always talk about Zola, it seems.
Do we?
One of the scenes, looking out this window that we're sitting out here in the brewery, looking out the window to my left, I can see the location of one of the scenes
Really?
that Zola was filmed at. Yeah, just
Just
like
in
right
front
here
of that
across the street.
warehouse
Yep.
kind of thing?
It was one of those when they were arguing in the parking lot in the
Right.
car about
It's a good place to argue.
what they were doing. It's literally filmed within eye distance of where we're sitting. But that's
Another
what happens.
movie I didn't adore because it didn't show our city in a great light.
No, but
And honestly, I feel 100% comfortable.
no, it was one of those things like in a movie.
100% comfortable in most of the places that they filmed, but they made it seem like it was terrible.
Well, like in location scouting, you're just posting. I could look out the windows of the car and I knew exactly where they were.
Right, I gotcha.
And that's where, right here on Adamo Drive, we can see where they filmed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you're in the area, I definitely recommend it.
For sure.
There's an IKEA also within eye distance.
If you're into going to IKEA,
go pick
stop
up.
by. Don't. Well, I shouldn't say that.
What?
There's a couple breweries around here.
Yeah.
But this is your more smaller,
you would
local,
notice the
hidden
big-
gem brewery.
you
You'll
would notice
notice the big
Coppertail.
brewery right across the street from IKEA. But be a little more adventurous.
Yeah.
Maybe have a beer there, but be a little more adventurous and go to the hidden local gem right around the corner.
Well, I said the bros go to Coppertail. We'll go here.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
We appreciate Coppertail, but
Oh, yeah. For what
I'm saying it
is.
gets really crowded on a Sunday.
For sure.
This is a chiller vibe. So we also watched a movie last night called Stoker.
Stoker.
And I guess we're going to talk about it.
And it's not have to do with vampires.
No, because that's Bram Stoker, right?
I know.
Because you're wondering, is it related? You know what? Funny,
That's
halfway
what I
through the
thought
movie,
when you first said it. Like
And
when you first mentioned watching the movie, I was
Yeah.
like, vampires?
and halfway through the movie, I thought it presented a moment. I was like,
You thought somebody was going to be a
"Ooh,
vampire?
Is this going to be a Bram Stoker thing after all? And it wasn't.
No.
Because it turns a little sinister the second half.
Yeah. For sure.
No, the
So,
real
yeah.
reason we watched this is because it was directed by Park Chan-wook, who also directed The Handmaiden,
Which we loved.
which we really liked and we talked about in our last episode.
Which is a Korean film.
He's a Korean director. Most of his films
This
are
is
Korean.
not a Korean film.
He made an American film in 2013.
But it has Korean film elements.
Well, it has his style, too.
Yeah, his style.
And it also, most notably, it stars Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
And we watched it on
Who I love Nicole Kidman. I don't think she was the star of the show.
No, but she's the name.
She's the name.
And she played the role
She
of...
did great in
Nicole
her role,
Kidman.
but you don't know. She's not like the centerpiece of the
No,
show.
which I
of
think
the
is good
movie.
and bad.
Mhm.
It's one of my complaints about the movie.
That she doesn't make herself the centerpiece.
She doesn't have to be the centerpiece. I think her character, now Park Chan-wook directed it, but he didn't write it. I think the role of the mother that Nicole Kidman plays is almost like an afterthought, or just this sort of...
I agree. It's like she kind of gets hidden in the story. Like she plays like a realistic version of a selfish mother, but I think she doesn't warrant enough attention.
She's very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
She's given
she
no
doesn't-
depth.
Yeah, I agree.
She seems like dumb, helpless, and naive.
Well, just like egocentric.
But I think there's more to her that they hint at, but they
but
don't
they
give you
don't
much.
dive into it. They don't dive into her like mental illness. I mean, she's obviously. I mean, I think a lot of them. Well, obviously, a lot of the movie is surrounded about mental illness, but they don't focus on mom's mental illness.
So,
which she does have mental.
You're right.
illness.
So we're jumping ahead. We'll say this: Stoker. I think we both liked it.
I liked it.
Not as much as Handmaiden.
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
No, I liked it. There was a lot that I liked about it. Then there were some things that I didn't like about it. But I don't know where we want to start with that. But
So we can start basically right. This is just like Handmaiden. It's a weird family drama.
and kind of like a coming of age drama.
It's a coming of age story.
It really is.
For the young woman in the movie.
Because that's really the focus. But the coming of age is not your typical coming of age story.
Well, it's Stoker because it even shows her picture, played by Mia.
Vushikov.
Yeah, Polish name.
It starts with a W, but it's pronounced
Yeah.
Vushikov.
Who was in like the Alice in Wonderland movies and some others.
Yeah.
But she's really so.
She's really good.
She's the centerpiece.
I
She's
think
in pretty much every
I think she
scene.
does
It's really
very
about her.
well.
When it says Stoker, it's really about her. She's that's their last name, the family's last name.
And that's what kind of the kids at school call her, Stoker.
They call her Stoker. The family has a legacy, apparently. They seem to be really rich and well off and established. But Stoker. But she's Stoker, and it's her sort of coming of age story.
She's slightly eccentric, different from your typical teenager. And
So it's all about.
I think the film focuses on her
Well,
in a
it's-
couple different elements.
Well, yeah, because it's all about the fallout of the death of her father.
So on her
Slash-
18th birthday, her father dies of what you know.
Unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly
A car
in
accident.
Yeah.
So Nicole Kidman's husband, Mia's father, dies. And then within this, the father's brother, Charlie, shows up unexpectedly.
Right.
Never been around ever. And her whole entire life, 18 years, never known her. Never
Right.
known him. He shows up and he kind of
Entwines himself in their
becomes a part of the family.
Through the
To-
mom, through the
Yeah, kind of taking the
daughter.
part of
his
filling the
brother.
father role. Mm-hmm. But instantly, Mia doesn't trust him.
Right. Because she sees. Well, I mean, and some of it's not even just him. Well,
It's a little
Okay,
bit like
there's a couple
Burning, too,
things.
thinking about Korean,
There's a
right?
couple
The
things.
mysterious male shows up that's
Yeah.
charismatic and
True.
handsome, and you don't trust him. But then
But-
also you're somewhat infatuated by him as well.
so she doesn't trust him, but she becomes increasingly infatuated with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the coming of age, like the focus on sexuality of her seeing other people intimate and wanting to be intimate with someone, but she becomes infatuated with him because she sees him trying to be intimate with her mother, kind of.
Yeah.
There's an
But we-
intimacy, but he also is playing her. Like he's becoming
Well, he's like stalking, like
Increasingly
creepazoid, following
giving her vibes
Mhm.
of
Yeah, giving her creepy uncle vibes.
creepy uncle, like he's interested in her. So
Showing up,
she-
sitting outside of school, and his.
So in her youth, in her sheltered kind of life, she may have never experienced a man showing interest like that in her. So she's immediately drawn to that,
Yeah.
especially through the psychological element of her father dying and everything. Like that's kind of strange. It's creepy. And you know what? The one thing I didn't like was that he was so. I feel like his creepiness was so over the top. It wasn't like a gradual, like, oh, this guy's kind of creepy. It was like
Yeah, but I think.
his
And we won't.
persona was immediately creepy.
Yeah, and we'll get into it a little bit more at the end because we put our major spoilers after the exit music, like we
Okay.
end the podcast. So we won't get into too much. But I think they reveal more about him later in the movie,
Yeah.
the last act, that explains his over-the-topness.
Right. Yeah. But
But you're right. It's like really heavy-handed from the beginning.
because then you're thinking like, why? I was thinking at the very beginning, like when I was figuring out that he was kind of starting to be.
But he's off, right?
He was starting to be
he's
interested
awkward.
in her. That was uncomfortable because at first I don't think you know right away that it was her 18th birthday when her father dies. I feel like that came later.
No, they tell you that later.
So I thought she was a lot younger because she looks young.
Well, we know she's in high school.
So it definitely
at
felt
minimal.
uncomfortable for this
Yeah.
grown man to be kind of like giving her sexual vibes. But also, why is he so obsessed with her when he's never even met her? Like, I haven't figured that out.
Yeah, that's the weird
either.
thing.
Like,
Even after you learn more about him and their family history, it's still strange in the fact. I mean, there's just some of it you just have to say, okay, there's like a weird.
He's just off.
So this movie brings up an interesting question about like nature versus nurture. Like you are the way you are.
Right.
You're
But
born that way?
She says something in the I forgot what the line is, but she says something in the first line of the movie.
But it's about her dress blowing in the wind.
Yeah, but she
a
says
dress.
like you are who you become.
That's I mean, like a
something.
dress, a skirt needs the wind to, because they show her standing in a field and it's like her skirt,
which is also at the end.
and then they show you at the end where that scene comes from. But it says something like, just like a skirt needs the wind to make it billow or whatever. We are who we are based on regardless of what happens to us or something like that.
Right. Regardless of our upbringing or our experiences, we are born to be who we are.
So we learn throughout the film, I don't think it's giving too much away, Charlie, the uncle, feels a strong connection towards India, the daughter.
Even though he's never met her.
He's never met her until he shows up at the funeral.
Yeah, which is strange to me. That part of it's strange to me.
So that's where his infatuation is about her. And he carries that. So it's,
But I also read one of the things during my research that I read was, and I didn't even think about this while I was watching it on my own, but I thought but when I read it, I was like, that's true. There's something that they have a housekeeper.
Yep.
The housekeeper disappears, which is random. And, well, I don't know if this is giving away too much of the ending. So basically, in a certain way, the housekeeper, through India's whole life, has kind of been an accomplice in helping. She's like, so India receives these gifts throughout her life.
Well, she receives, they tell us like in the first 5 or 10 minutes, she receives mysteriously a pair of shoes every year of her birthday. Right? The same kind of shoes.
But the housekeeper is the one that's giving them to her, and she knows where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So why is the housekeeper part of this sadistic thing? That's curious.
Well, because I would think the housekeeper's been around since the early years of the family.
Right.
The housekeeper's older. She's an older woman. So I think the housekeeper's been around since a child.
Right, yeah.
It's been a housekeeper since her father was a boy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she knows Charlie as a boy. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know either. That was
But no, the shoes things is one thing. That's one thing I like. And thinking back about the Handmaiden, remember, and the use of gloves in the Handmaiden, and just like I think that's one thing that's really enjoyable about this film, is just how it's shot and filmed and edited. It's like we talked about it before with the Korean films. This sort of difference between a lot of American cinema, and again, part of it's the craft that Park Chan-wook, the director, does. He makes just visually stunning and interesting movies. So just like the motif of the shoes, right? And then plays throughout the whole movie. Like shoes being a symbol of growth and maturity. Like the gloves were this idea in Handmaiden of what you can touch and not touch. And when you have the gloves on, you're removed from some of the intimacy of things. So that was just fascinating to see this. And then also just the weird perspectives. At times you weren't sure what was real or imagined, especially with Mia.
Yes.
Like her memories, were you seeing what was actually happening, or were you seeing her interpretation or her
Some
own
of it,
sort
I
of...
think it's just like her teenage kind of desire, imagination, like kind of going into her own head.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of like fantasizing of what you think would really happen. Like
Well,
there's...
showing her like emotion and her desire and her, her kind of like curiosity
Yeah, like-
towards.
Well, for example, there's a
sex
very
and whatever.
intense piano scene with her and the uncle, Charlie, where they play piano together. And she gets extremely hot and bothered by all of it. But it even calls into question if that even happened.
But to me,
Like,
I'm
was
not
that all in
sure-
her head?
Yeah. But when I saw that, I think that's a very typical teenage girl thing.
No,
to
of course.
do.
Yeah. But I'm saying the way it's filmed is just like...
or teenage person thing to do.
It's
really.
intriguing.
Yeah.
Same thing with the interaction with her and the boy in the woods, and when her uncle intervenes.
So
We see two different versions. We don't know what truly happened,
right.
but whatever happened, she was also extremely hot and bothered and aroused by it all. And both of them focus on her
the
uncle.
Thing that
Later in
thing
the
that
movie,
happened-
between her and the boy in the woods.
Well, see, I think that was okay. So I
And the
think
uncle
those were
intervenes.
two separate things.
Yeah, but I'm saying in both instances, the uncle's there, and in both instances, we don't get we get an unreliable like version. We don't know truly what happened
Right. I think
because her own sort of fantasies.
So do you think that's like part of a mental illness, or do you think it's part of just a typical teenage imagination?
Well, I
Or
think
desire.
I think her desires are maybe a bit beyond the typical teenager's desires, and I think that's part of the point of the film.
Well, I think the piano one, I would be like, okay, whatever. I don't necessarily think so, but the one with the boy in the woods, I think that's when the transition takes place of her sexual enlightenment or whatever.
Not even that. I think there's just something you realize she's a little different.
She's sexually turned on by violence and death.
Yeah.
That's when that realization happens. Yeah.
The quote, by the way, I looked it up, is just as the skirt needs the wind to billow, I am not formed by the things that are of myself alone. That's
So
the
other
quote.
things form her. I was thinking of something else, but
No, that's the
yeah.
quote I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of something else.
But it's back to that, like,
Yeah.
and I think back to the connection between her and her uncle. The uncle feels a strong connection to her for whatever reason.
He realizes
That they are one, and he keeps saying that they are the same blood. And that's when then we were saying that we are the same blood, which was then making me think,
But
oh, is
she
this a
was
Bram
his
Stoker
father.
movie? Is this no, not her. You thought she was her
I was
father.
like,
You blurted that out.
He's really her father.
I didn't think that stuff, only because the Nicole Kidman I thought would act different in his presence. She seemed just as surprised at his arrival. It was obvious she had never really met him either.
Okay.
I felt.
Yeah. No, it was. She, I don't know, Nicole Kidman's character was very she wasn't terribly upset that her husband died. It didn't seem like they had a good marriage at all.
But we didn't get to see much glimpse of this, and there was no
Flashback to the marriage.
let's show back to this relationship.
Or who the dad was.
They showed a little bit with the daughter and the dad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did. You're right. But it seems as if Nicole Kidman was somewhat disconnected from the dad and the daughter, and the dad and the daughter had a closer relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was also, you could tell, like, the dad's role, that we see a little bit of him, even
Almost
with the...
like jealous of her and her husband's relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had, like...
Which is what started happening with the uncle and her daughter.
Nicole
She
Kidman
was
had a
jealous.
resentment towards her daughter through most of the movie, if not all of
Carried
it.
on with the uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, the father was shown a little bit in how he tried to... You could tell the father's role was he was trying to manage these other people.
Right.
Like his brother, like his daughter, India. And through all that, it just seemed that Nicole Kidman's character, the mother, was just sort of forgotten, was just sort of the side.
Aside. Was an aside, yeah, for sure. She kind of lived in her own world.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how she was in the movie.
Yeah, that was just my complaint in the movie. She could be in her own world. It would have just been nice if they showed more of her world.
Right.
You never really saw her, even when
Kind
she
of
was...
her anguish, kind of what her...
Yeah, it just felt like her character wasn't developed at all. And so I said it just felt very Nicole Kidman-y.
Yeah.
Sometimes she gets these roles where she just plays the... I don't know how to
Beautiful
describe
wife.
it. Well,
Or
she's
whatever.
obviously, yeah, she's that. But then she's like quiet and sort of pent up and frustrated, but holds it all back and is never assertive. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like just a number of movies you see her in this role. And I'm like, I don't know. So that was just
Seen that before, yeah.
it was just,
Like to see her put more into it.
I mean, because obviously she had some like anger in her and resentment in her
And grief and sadness.
and all of that. But
all that.
none of it you really got.
No,
to
none of
see.
it really comes out.
You saw little glimpses of a moment, but then it was just sort of like an afterthought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the most emotional she gets is when she gets mad at her daughter at the end and kind of tells her.
Yeah, no, that was a good scene. That was her best scene in the movie. That, and when she like goes off on the aunt who shows up as well.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, she doesn't really show much. She doesn't have much rage. In
No,
her
no rage. You would
emotions.
think she'd have more rage, but I don't know. That was my little problem with Nicole Kidman, but
So, one of my favorite parts of the movie. Favorite aspects of the movie. I shouldn't say parts, but aspects of the movie was the. I was just thinking of this earlier. I was asking what that movie was called. Was the sound, like the sound effects.
oh yeah, sound was really good in this.
So like the egg cracking.
The what cracking?
The egg. When they
Oh,
were
so
like
early on she's like
doing the
rolling.
egg,
She's rolling.
and the sharpening of the pencil.
Oh, the sound design was awesome.
So that reminded me of The Killing of Two Lovers.
Yeah, with the cocking
with
of the gun.
Just real like intense
The
sound, kind of the buildup of pressure, anxiety, or whatever in the movie. And they definitely had not as intense of it as Killing of Two Lovers, but they definitely had an element of that I
No,
liked.
there was a cool part early on in the movie, like from the first 20 minutes. Mia, the daughter, or India, played by Mia. India, the daughter, seems to think there's a dead body in the freezer, the deep freezer downstairs in the thing, right? And whenever she opens it, it's the sound of the freezer, right?
Right. Everything is very intense. Every little
But-
sound.
Throughout, for a while in the movie, every time she opens any sort of thing with a lid, her pencil case, her pencil box, the piano,
Lid. Where the keys.
that covers
yeah.
the keys, the piano lid. Anytime she opens any sort of thing that resembles the lid of the freezer, in the background of the movie, there's the freezer sound. The freezer sound emerges, and it's just there.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like a hum in the background, and then it goes away whenever she closes it, like to let you know, like that's in her mind.
Her mind. Yeah, I really liked that aspect of the movie.
That was really cool.
That was good.
Because again, we're not sure. Is she seeing these things? Is she
just
making
seeing
it up?
a body in the freezer? Is it really there? Like, we don't know if it's.
And that's what I mean.
something-
Throughout the movie,
She's an unreliable.
unreliable narrator and all that. Yeah, for sure. And I
Yeah.
like, you're right. That's, I mean, visually, And auditorially, this movie is
Yeah.
just like, I don't think it's quite on par with The Handmaiden. I feel
No.
there's a little like holding back for
Or
whatever
even
reason.
Killing of Two Lovers. Not
Yeah.
even as.
But still,
But it's still really good. And
yeah, it doesn't blow you away like, say, The Handmaiden did in the way that film was put together and presented. But
They're really good aspects.
it's all still there.
For sure.
And there's like
some
weird,
more
like,
problems with this movie, I feel like. But
well, just like
there's, I mean, than those
narratively, like
movies,
just the
but
story itself.
just the like, how,
And I, you know what I was
why?
thinking? It's funny. I was watching this. I was like, if this was a Korean movie, not in English, not with English actors, and it was everything else was identical, I was like, this might work a bit better. I don't know why.
No, I think it would. I think the like long stares and long pauses are more like Korean films, and people expect that in like a foreign film
Yeah.
and French films as well, but not like in American films. But it's the same style as a Korean or a French film in that aspect.
That's, I mean, there was a little bit of a, yeah, you could say like kind of some of the artisticness that would show up in a foreign film that you don't always see in a more American, even a more art house film like this. It just felt this had to have little sprinkles of Hollywood in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or the fact that they were familiar faces removed you a bit from it too. I don't know.
For sure.
'Cause that part of me was watching this. I'm like, man, I wish this was a foreign film and not an American film.
Yeah, it seemed like a foreign film, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was by a foreign director, but
Let's see, what else? What else do we want to say about it?
I don't know.
Oh, I really liked the, this is a random thought. I really liked, oh, should we even say that though? Yeah.
What?
That when they flash back to the childhood of kind of like
I
why
think we'll talk about
Charlie's
that.
like that.
We'll do all the big spoiler reveals and our thoughts after we do the outro music.
Well,
I'll
so,
say- oh, go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
No, my other thought about the movie, or my other big thought about it, there was something I was going to say, but I forgot for a minute here. Give me a minute.
I can say some. I have no fun facts. I looked for fun facts, but Mia Wasikowska, she has just been this like hardworking Australian actress that has worked really hard. She's done a lot of movies. She escaped a marriage proposal at some point.
I mean, I think it's pretty easy to escape a marriage proposal. You just say, no thanks.
Well, she
I'm gonna
like
pass.
fled the country because
That seems a bit drastic.
she dated Jesse Eisenberg for a little bit. That's interesting. She was a ballerina for a really long time. That's how she thought she would become famous, but she had a typical ballerina injury in her heel that stopped that.
No, she was really
dream.
good in it.
She was great, and she's beautiful. She looks a lot younger
my
than she is.
That's the thing. There were some scenes in it. Again, if you've seen The
That are
Handmaiden,
uncomfortable.
if you've seen The Handmaiden, you know Park Chan-wook does not shy away from
Uncomfortable scenes.
or graphic sexuality stuff.
Right.
Or just graphic for the term of saying, there's no holds bar. This movie has a little bit of that as well. Which then you're like, how old is she? And it's like, okay.
Because when I first started watching it, she looks like she's about 14 or 15. But, I mean, she's supposed to be 18. She's probably older than that.
Yeah, of course. No, I'll say that my other kind of big thought about this, my thought in general was, this was a cool film, let's use that term, because one thing I like about films by this director, or just something, I don't know, maybe it's a characteristic of some Korean cinema, right, where it presents itself one thing, right? This is sort of this drama, family drama dealing with death and loss. And then it turns into a totally different film that gets really dark as well, right? So I like that. And this one was that, but almost like a very Alfred Hitchcock. This is a very Alfred Hitchcock type movie.
I didn't think
Like
of
I
that.
felt Psycho vibes through a lot of this movie, right? And I felt this was this is my thought I was trying to have a minute ago. This felt like a, a lot of times you get films compared like it's a Hitchcock-esque movie. I felt this was a really good modern Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what I really
liked.
liked.
That before, but I agree with that for sure.
Like this family, this situation. Like I said, it might be a bit clumsy as it gets later into the movie, or a bit too obvious, but that was the thing I really liked about it. So
Yeah.
that
It was good.
this sort of
I recommend it.
I definitely recommend it. It was something I was kind of hesitant to watch even when it came out in 2013. It just seemed like this sort of dry, slow drama.
Oh, it came out a long time ago. I didn't realize it came out that
Yeah.
long ago.
And in reality, it's like artistically, visually, it's great. And then the story goes down this path that gets pretty dark and morbid.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of asks this question of like, are you are what you are, right? And it's a bit, as we get close to the end, it becomes this sort of almost Dexter type story.
True.
As
That's
well.
true. I
But
didn't
not quite,
watch all
but-
of Dexter, but I know the concept of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. In fact, this came out in 2013, though. So, though Dexter and that the novel and stuff was around, obviously, it wasn't like a thing like it is now. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are my general thoughts. We can cut a little early and get the music playing, and then go on a
Yeah.
little bit more into the.
I mean, I
Deeper
I
story-
highly
deeper
recommend
spoilers.
it. You have to have patience for it because there's long pauses.
It is long, but you know what's awesome about it?
There's
I think it's only like 98 minutes long. 99 minutes long, which
mean-
is cool because it's not a long 2.5 hour movie.
Right.
It's an hour and a half.
right.
And yeah, it
seems longer
a
because
little-
of the pace of the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
but at the same time, it is this sort of tight,
It's a good
dramatic
It's a
thriller.
good watch. Yeah. For
Like,
sure.
Sometimes I'm hesitant to recommend a 2 hour plus
And
movie.
it's a little like unexpected. I mean, you kind of know what's coming, but you don't really. It's not something you typically see in a movie. It's not your
That's really
typical
good.
story.
Yeah. So here's what I
like
think we
it.
do. I think we should we'll pause for a minute. We're gonna play the outro
Okay.
music.
Gotcha.
We gotta refill our beverages from Bastet. Always forget that T. Brewing. And the music will play, and then we'll be right back, and we'll talk just a little bit more about the third act and all the things it reveals and how that plays into the nature versus nurture
Yeah.
part of this. And the coming of age of India Stoker.
Yes. And her sexuality.
Maybe sexuality.
It is definitely her. India's sexuality is the focus of the film. For sure.
I guess you have to see on the other half.
From a woman's point of view.
All right. So if this is it, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it and then pick up the last 5 minutes of our podcast
Yep.
after the music. If you have seen it, enjoy the tunes, and we'll be right back. All right. Bye. Okay, we're
We're
back.
back.
We got our refills.
I have to say, these beers are so good.
They're good. They're different.
So mine is called, and the one that he had before, now I have it, is called Guanabana Mira.
Yep.
And it has ginger, apple, pear, pineapple, and it hardly even tastes like beer.
Well, it's like
so good.
like a hard kombucha ginger.
It's not though. It is
No,
a beer.
it's not kombucha. Yeah.
And his is called Ole Tipaki.
Yeah. So
And
it says
is
it's like a fruit beer.
Pineapple, ginger, cardamom.
It's really good.
It's so good. It's very light. Very, very light.
It's refreshing, sweet, and a tangy twist on the traditional Mexican recipe.
That's good reading off the menu. It is. Anyway, we're just kind of like blown away by the different tastes of these beers that you don't typically get at your typical brewery.
Typically bro brewery, you know? They don't got it there.
Never would you get something like this.
No, it's really
very
good.
different. Anyway, we're
so
back.
to wrap up, spoiler thoughts on Stoker. So the big reveal is Charlie, from a young age, murdered
His younger brother.
his brother's younger brother. They had a younger brother that he killed.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like in a sadistic way. I liked he like fell in the hole, or he slid into the hole. He dug a hole at the bottom of the slide.
And buried his younger brother.
Buried his younger brother alive, but you just see him doing like dirt angels on top of the hole when his older brother Richard, who's the husband of
India's father, and
finds him.
Which also earlier in the movie, India is doing the snow angel movement on her bed at one point.
Oh, I didn't even.
Kind of this idea of like you
that.
are who you are.
Yeah. So I loved that parallel.
Yeah, and so I guess somehow Charlie knows that India is just like him, has that sort of murderous.
Is the housekeeper giving him inside information?
Well, the housekeeper's in on it because the housekeeper.
She's definitely in on it.
The housekeeper's the one who's been leaving the gifts mysteriously every year for India. But obviously, we learn that they are from Charlie.
Right.
Not from the housekeeper. She's the one delivering it. But she gives India a key to the father's desk that reveals the information that
So Charlie's been writing her letters.
Well, one that Charlie's been writing her letters since he was a young age. Since he's been in an insane asylum, mental hospital.
That's the part I didn't like. Like, it's
Right.
a little too cliche.
It's a little cliche, right?
It's a little cliche.
100% cliche.
Yeah. But, okay.
He's been staying in an insane asylum.
Of course he was, yeah.
So it reveals that to India, and it reveals to India that that there was a younger brother.
Right.
That she had another uncle, but that Charlie had killed. She puts it together. Charlie killed it.
But she's going in between, like, shock, but then also, like, still, like, desire.
Yeah.
Of, like, being with him. I mean, she really, like, bounces back and forth between, like, ethical behavior and just her natural, like, desire for, like, violence and death, and then being kind of, like, drawn to that.
Well, she puts it together when she experiences violence.
Right.
One towards when she stabs the boy with a pencil and the blood on the pencil, that kind of triggers something in her. When the other boy tries to rape her in the woods and Charlie intervenes and kills him
on top of her.
On top of her. That arouses her.
She goes back to the shower.
Through all that makes her realize she likes death.
It turns her on.
Mm-hmm. And then she realizes that her dad always took her bird hunting.
To kind of channel that.
To channel her murderous. So the father knew that he was like Charlie, that she was like Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
So he was taking her out to shoot things to help quell that desire.
Right.
And she realizes that's why my dad always took me out.
Mm-hmm. But in the end, she does, like, this is what I'm saying, the mother-daughter relationship is so complicated because she saves her mom in the end.
Yeah, because Charlie thinks they're going to get in on it together and then kill Nicole Kidman.
And
kill her
go
mom.
off together. And she doesn't let him kill her mom. However, she doesn't have a likeness towards her mom, really. But enough to that she doesn't want to see her die.
Yeah, and this is like this weird power struggle, right? Between her and Charlie, the mom and Charlie. Like Charlie's this like pawn that they both use, and then he's using both of them. But then she's like, I'm better than you, Charlie. Like I'm better
You
at
have more
this.
power.
I have more control over this than you do.
Yeah.
So you're my weak link. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And she does. And then she goes off.
And
I
then
mean, she leaves her
And then
mom.
it becomes almost like this dark, sadistic comedy. She drives off. Because earlier in the movie, there's the scene when the sheriff comes to question her about the boy being missing. And she's sort of like nervous and fumbling through it, holding her story pretty well. But Charlie has to intervene to kind of smooth it over. So then it ends with her like purposely speeding to get the sheriff's attention. And then it's just like calm, cool, and collective and like
Kills the sheriff.
stabs him in the side of the neck with a pair of shears.
That is
Like
kind
I
of
said,
comedic.
It's almost this like dark comedy. Like again, tonally, the last, say, 20 minutes or so doesn't quite gel with the rest of the film. It takes such a hard left turn that you're either into it or you're not.
But the other thing that doesn't gel, the only thing that kind of, it really like bothered me on the film was when they flash back to Charlie being in the car with Richard, like him picking him up from the mental hospital and telling him.
How we reveal how the father died.
Yeah, and telling him, like, here's all this stuff. Basically trying to get him away from India, his family.
Yeah.
Saying, like, I want you to go to New York. Here's your plane ticket. Here's your money. Here's your everything. I've got you all set up. I got you an apartment. The way Charlie acts like a child, like crying. And even his tone of voice, it's almost like he's a completely different character.
He was very different.
That wasn't like, and then so literally like a couple hours later when he walks into their house, or he's like cool, calm, and collected and like debonair Charlie.
Yeah, well, he's...
Like it seemed really weird that he had this almost like childlike mental incapacitation to where he spoke like that and cried like that.
Yeah.
To like the next moment him being... That didn't match up to me.
No, it didn't fully match up for me either, but I just, when you watch movies, you try to explain things away. I was like, oh, he
took
just...
on a different personality or something.
Not only that, he just like switched. He snapped, right?
Right.
He was very hopeful of being reunited with the family. He became childlike and cried like his old self. And then once he gets out of the car for a minute, he vomits, right? Mm-hmm. Charlie does. After his brother says, no, you're going to New York. I got everything set up. He vomits, and then he comes back changed, right? And I was like, okay, he just switches gears. And that's why I said this movie reminded me of Hitchcock's Psycho. Mm-hmm. What it really reminds me of, which is not a Hitchcock movie, is Psycho Part 2. Which happened years later, starred Anthony Perkins still. But it's after he got out of the mental hospital.
Okay.
Anthony Perkins' character.
I didn't see.
We watched
one.
Psycho 2 together many years
did?
ago. We did.
Sorry.
We did. But it's Norman Bates returning to the hotel, and he runs it.
Okay.
And he's just tries to keep his act together, and then he breaks and he starts murdering people in the hotel and gets refatuated with his mother.
Right. Okay.
So in some ways, this reminded me, but that's a little side tangent. Psycho 2 is a really good watch. People should watch it. No, besides the Psycho 2 thing.
Okay.
Right? And that connection I saw there, to your point about how it's almost like not believable that he switches like on a dime. It seemed like following that switch, like, right? He was trying, upon being released from the institution, he was trying to be good again. He just wanted to get reconnected with family. And when his brother, in essence, rejected him, and he said the line, I still love you, I just have to love you a little less. Not everything, obviously, Charlie said, but most of his key dialogue throughout the entire movie was references that things were repeats or echoes of what other people had said to him. about family, about love, about, everything. He just would repeat things that he had been said. And like, that's kind of what he was speaking about. And so I kind of felt once he sort of snapped in the car and killed his brother, that's how he switched out of being this like kind of crybaby emotional self.
Okay.
And he was now just,
A different person, almost like a split personality.
yeah, and he was just
Which
kind of
could have been-
mimicking and repeating things. Like we got the weird versions of India's perception, like what she was seeing and not seeing. We didn't know what was real. I felt his sort of repeating of things was him reliving or seeing things differently than what was actually happening.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
But I agree with you. It all kind of felt rushed or just big leaps of faith.
Yeah.
But I still think overall, still a really good movie for a Park Chan-wook film, and seeing the elegance in a film like The Handmaiden, where it's like almost like meticulously put together. This had some
Rougher
rushed parts.
edges.
Maybe there was a 30-minute longer version of this film
Yeah.
initially.
Had some rougher edges that were, yeah, I mean, you could tell, but it was still
You
a
just have to
great
take some
movie.
leaps
It
of
was still
faith
a
with
really
it. Be
good
either
movie.
along for the ride, either like the hard right turns it takes, or you don't.
Yeah. I definitely went with it for sure, but when you sit back and reflect on it, you're like,
No, but I like that it
why
turns
was he in
into.
love with India? He's
Yeah.
never met her.
I like that it
Like,
starts
why?
with. It starts as the weird, like, oh, is this the creepy uncle in love with his niece type movie? I like that it starts that way, and it ends as, no, this is a movie about an 18-year-old girl who's going to grow up to be a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
think is.
And her coming of age is her coming of age, her coming of sexuality, and her coming of terms of her mental illness all
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it's an identity, like a found her identity
Yeah.
movie.
And then that's how the movie ends too, right? With her saying showing the exact same scene at the beginning of.
Same kind of quote, not that quote that you read, but something else.
No, but she doesn't say much at the end, but it's still that idea of.
You are who you are.
The movie begins with this idea. The movie begins with a shot, we don't see it, of her killing the sheriff, and it ends with her killing of the sheriff.
Yeah.
And her dress,
That
her
you
skirt,
can't control who you have been.
her skirt
born to be.
her skirt billowing in the wind,
Yeah.
becoming who you are. And that's how it begins and ends.
And you could say, I guess, maybe, and also not only the uncle coming, could be, we know a lot about traumatic events in children. Could the traumatic event of her father's death have triggered a mental illness that was there? The coming out of that mental illness, you
Yeah.
know? Probably. I mean, because it's really all centered around a traumatic event
It's true.
and how people are dealing with this traumatic event. The wife, the daughter, and the brother.
Yeah. So it's a good movie. I
Which
think.
she may have had tendencies towards it before, but now that her father has died and person she was closest to in her entire life, that she was kind of triggered that behavior
Yeah.
or whatnot. You know? I don't
You're
know.
right.
That's a,
I mean, that's
just a
how-
random thought I just had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, again, that's kind of how Dexter kind of kicks off, right? Once Dexter's on his own without his dad, he starts murdering people.
Well, typically,
And
if
but the
you
dad's
do your
role in
research,
Dexter was to keep the dark
like
spirit.
mental illness doesn't, start affecting people until
Yeah.
early 20s. You can see signs of it as in children, as we know as educators.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fully manifest until you're
But you know what I like?
mature.
Just give me another
More
thought. You know what I
mature.
like about this? This movie doesn't. Well, yes. While there might be some triggers that make her start doing this stuff, this movie makes zero attempt to explain why she is this way
That's true.
or why Charlie is that way.
That's
It's just
true.
they are.
Well,
Meaning nothing terrible. They didn't say, we don't know, but they didn't show it. Something terrible didn't happen to Charlie as a young boy. Something terrible didn't happen to India that would make her.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you're born.
That's
that
what I
way.
mean. That's what I like about this movie. It didn't
The
say.
belief, no matter of other people's beliefs, the belief of the director or the belief of that they want you to understand is that their belief is that you are born a certain way and that's who you become. It's a predestined behavior.
Yeah.
Such as
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I like about it.
I mean, and I think it's the same way with like what we say, like with sexuality. Can you nurture someone to be gay or straight or bi or whatever? No, like you're born a certain way. You're predestined to be that way. Even if you try to suppress it, you're going to be that person.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing sometimes with mental illness,
Yeah.
right? And unless you diagnose it and get on medication or whatnot, your brain is born in a certain way. So you are going to be that way, whether you're borderline personality, whether you're psychotic, whether you're normal, bipolar, whatever, depression. You can deal with things in a different way, but she wasn't in a family that dealt with mental illness well.
I agree. But still, that line, right? It's just great the way that line's written. Just as the skirt needs the wind to billow, I am not formed by things that are of myself alone. This is the way it's written. I'm not formed by things
No,
that are
because you have
myself alone.
genetics.
I know, but I'm saying
Her
it's just,
genetics are Charlie.
just the way it's written. It's great.
Yeah, you have you.
But I'm saying it's not the syntax, the way the sentence is written is not
Right, a normal syntax.
It's not the clearest way to communicate that, which in itself is
You don't really-
it's a complicated thing to think about
Yeah, I agree.
of who you are and how you get there, and just the phrasing of that sentence, the simple metaphor of the wind and the skirt is easy to understand, but then the phrasing of the next part, I'm not formed by the things that are of myself alone,
True.
is I think I will give the writing, some of the writing wasn't the best in the structure of the narrative.
I want to look up the quote
Some of
that
that stuff's really good.
said, but I can't look it up at this moment.
Well, I just
Because
had
that
this one
wasn't the
easily.
quote that I was thinking, but there was a quote that I was reading about when I was researching that they said at the beginning of the movie that I thought was really significant, and I didn't really catch it at the beginning. But anyway, I'm not going to look it up right now.
When Nicole Kidman tells her, personally speaking, I can't wait to watch the world tear you apart.
Wow, that was the best part of the movie. You know what? It does dive deeper into the mother-daughter complex relationship. And we talk about this in a lot of other movies because I am very, very adamant that the mother-daughter relationship is one of the most complex relationships out there. It's very, very complex. I don't know what it is about the two female whatever, but when she says that to her, and it's not, and it's funny because when I'm watching her say that to her daughter, you don't 100% believe it
Yeah.
because you're looking at this mother making her daughter feel guilty. I mean, this is my take on it. Like, she's a narcissistic, selfish mother, period, whatever. But she loves her daughter in some aspect. But the complicated nature of that line is like perfect. It's like perfect for that moment. It's perfect.
Maybe this is your quote. This is her monologue from the beginning of the movie.
Yes, this is it.
My ears hear what others cannot hear. Small, faraway things people cannot normally see are visible to me. These senses are the fruits of a lifetime of longing to be rescued, to be completed. Just as the skirt needs the wind to billow, I am not formed by things that are of myself alone. I wear my father's belt tied around my mother's blouse and shoes which are from my uncle. This is me. Just as a flower does not choose its color, we are not responsible for what we have come to be. Only once you realize this do you become free, and to become adult is to become free.
Exactly why it's a coming of age story. To become adult is to become free, to make your own choices, to be who you are.
Yeah.
Not
No, there's
to
some
live
cool stuff
the
in there.
life. Yeah.
And again, she's talking about she wears her father's belt, her mother's blouse, and her uncle's shoes, which is all of that happens in the movies.
Yeah. So the whole movie is about her becoming adult and realizing who she is, and who she is isn't who you might expect her to be.
She's a dark, murderous killer. Psycho killer. So it's good. And then also there's that cool part early in the late in the movie when she talks about seeing yourself in photographs from angles that you never see of yourself.
That.
It was a good little part about that's also who you are when the angles of yourself you don't recognize or often see.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah. And realizing that you're also that person.
But like you can see, like, yeah.
It's like your public persona versus your like actual persona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so that was the long extra spoiler part, but
That was long.
that's usually the stuff we talk about after we stop recording.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
that's why it's at the end now.
But we've been so tired this weekend that we haven't discussed anything until now.
No. But no, so while you were talking, I looked it up. The long intro.
Thank you. It was the second part of that intro that I was talking about. The last part of it. But.
So cool. All right. We'll end it here for the second time if you stuck with us. We're going to finish our fruit beers.
Fruity tooties.
Oh, cheers.
Oh. Cheers.
We didn't cheer at the other side, so.
We didn't what?
We didn't cheer before the music we're supposed to. But it's all right.
It's okay.
All right.
This place is fun.
It's picking back up.
It's still picking back up. It's Sunday night.
They got a second wave.
Yeah, they did. Super fun. If you're ever in Tampa, come to this place. It's super nice owner. I think he's the owner.
Yeah.
Owner/bartender. And just cool vibe, great beer, great selection.
Yep.
We like it
All right.
a lot.
So our next movie. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.